So, first thing, approval of the minutes from September 9th. Any move to approve? Second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any changes, revisions, questions?
Yes.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, we have 4. We have 7, 6. So we're down 2 right now. So 9 is our
Okay.
max, and so yes. So we just need
Cindy, who's the? How are we down to? Who's the other?
Lorenza and
Oh,
Matt.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. Public agenda. I don't think we have anybody here to speak on public agenda. Russ, do you want to speak on public agenda also?
Do you want to hear from me?
No. No.
Usually doesn't like it.
All right. So we have no public agenda this evening unless you wanted to speak. I know who you're with, but I thought you might want to speak on public agenda. And then we had someone else join us. Jerry, here to speak on public agenda? All right. All right. So we have one new business item tonight, and I think we'll turn it over to Phil.
Well, good evening. If you remember, my name is Phil Ziegenberg. I'm an associate planner with the Mental Health and Planning Department. We've got a rezone case for you today, which is on the very northeast side of the Delano area. It's located on the northwest corner of 2nd and McLean. So it's basically just north of the new library on the other side of McLean from Exploration Place. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from general commercial to central business district. For the purpose of redevelopment. The east half of the property is actually still owned by the city of Wichita. They are currently in negotiations for a real estate transaction there. What makes that interesting is it was used as a condemnation when they realigned the plan in 1996, so that just makes a real estate transaction sticky. But they're working through that. They do plan to purchase it from the city. The city is amenable to selling it as long as they go through the right process. There are old railroad right-of-ways in there as well. Those are going to be taken care of through this process, and they will be rezoned to the central business district as well. On the west portion of the property, there is Osage Circle. That street has been vacated. It is split in half and shared in ownership. This property owns the east half of the street. The property to the west owns their half of the street, and our maintenance and access agreements on that as well. Rezoning to CBD allows a mixture of residential uses, public and civic uses, commercial uses that are outlined in the Unified Zoning Code. What makes Central Business District unique is that for non-residential uses, there's no minimum setbacks for the uses, so you can have lot line to lot line development, and there's no minimum lot area coverage, and there's no minimum on-site parking requirement. And that's mostly, especially in the Delano area, why a lot of cases we're seeing in Delano are requesting central business districts, so they do not have to meet that on-site parking requirement. There are several cases of central business district zoning. To the south, we have the new library, which is central business district. When you go across the river, pretty much most of downtown is central business district. And if you actually go to the Delano business district itself, there's a lot of the CBD zoning in there as well. So it's very common in the area. To the north, Exploration Place is zoned limited commercial. To the south, Key Construction has their general offices there, and they're zoned limited industrial. I think they do some warehousing on that property as well. And to the west is zoned general commercial, and it's just a mixture of commercial uses with the properties to the west. West 2nd Street is a paved 2-lane road that has on-street parking as well as on-street bike lanes. As I mentioned, North Osage Circle is vacated, and then McLean Boulevard is a 4-lane divided with the planted median in the area. The Community Investments Plan, which is our comprehensive plan, indicates that this area is good for new residential as well as an employment mix. So it basically says it's going to be for mixed uses. And they determined that the residential won't have a negative impact on the commercial, nor would the commercial have an impact on the residential. Most likely residential uses would be of higher density given the area. The site is also located in an influence area for the Delano Neighborhood Plan. The future land use plan concept for that plan indicates that this would be really good for mixed use development, as we've already talked about. It also recommends a lot of CBD zoning in the area, like I mentioned before, because of a no minimum on-site parking requirement. This site, however, does not have to that's what I'm looking for. It's not held according to the Delano overlay district, which would require aesthetic standards and material standards for construction and stuff like that. So they're outside of those boundaries, but they still are within the boundaries of the actual neighborhood plan for Delano. Based on these things, staff is recommending approval of this. It will be going to Planning Commission tomorrow, and subsequently to City Council, most likely on consent, probably 2 to 3 weeks after that. And with that, I can stand for any staff questions. We do have Russ here with Hoffman representing the applicant. He may be able to answer other questions you might have, depending on how specific they are.
Questions?
Really, it's just a comment. I mean, the central business district zoning has been primarily for buildings that have been there already and not necessarily used for development. And that's the only part I'm really struggling with. Here we have a new development. It's an empty lot. It's going to be used for new development. Why is it appropriate to use a CBD in this case?
I think they're primarily seeking it to avoid the parking requirement. If I'm honest, I can't speak 100% with that, but given the nature of the area and the limited amount of parking, there is some space on the north side of the current existing building. That's there. It's like an old warehouse that I think he used to own. It has a tractor trailer loading dock. I think there is some available parking on the north side, but I think depending on what use goes in here, they could potentially have a large parking requirement that would take up a significant portion of the space.
So in that case, where are people going to park then? I mean, if the building or the occupancy is going to look at large parking, where is that?
There are the River Vista Apartments, which are kind of kitty corner across the Second and McLean intersection. Part of their garage is designated public parking. I think technically the library after hours, since it's a public lot, is public parking, and that's right across the street. There is on-street parking along Second Street along both sides. So there are parking options.
Russ, can you speak any more to that? I know you probably know their plans. So
Sure.
You'll have to give your name for on this new.
Russ Avey with Baldwin Company. I'm representing the applicants on this zoning case, and like similar other type of redevelopment cases, this actually does have a structure on it. Whether or not the applicants intend to restore and expand that existing building, we primarily see, I would agree with Philip that parking is one of those standards that we enjoy the Central Business District zoning for its flexibility. But I would say that the primary use of the Central Business District is its flexibility as it relates to zero lot setbacks. So we talk about the style and scale of development downtown, parts of Delano, and parts of College Hill, and along that Douglas Street corridor. I think we're going to see more of that because these are historically older neighborhoods that have a presence at the street level. So if you've noticed over the past 50 years, development has kind of occurred with these giant setbacks, buildings set back 30, 50, 100 feet off of the main arterial. You'll notice in Delano, one of the things that works great with this particular zoning district is it brings everything to a street scale. So here again, like much of the redevelopment of the Delano area, especially everything north of Douglas, it just provides flexibility on otherwise smallish, crowded lots that you kind of have to shoehorn modern development into. So this just provides flexibility for the architects and the developers on this. I can't speak to exactly what the future building is going to be, but that's the rationale behind this particular zoning district, and we've seen it work very, very well.
And some of the initial plans I've seen on this, their parking is considered.
Certainly.
I think they want to avoid that you have to have X amount of parking places for this amount of square footage, depending on their usage.
Certainly.
That plan, I think, is to have what they believe is enough parking to accommodate their
Certainly.
building.
And it
But none of that, even though that may be true, none of that has to be approved though.
That is correct.
And
That is
so
correct.
I mean, the same thing comes into play. We take your word that it's going to be correct.
Yeah, you do.
It's
Is there-
open-ended.
Yeah, because there's a reason why, there's a reason why that exists to have parking, so. Yeah.
It does.
It's clear that it's easier to avoid it and not have it, but there's a reason There must be a reason that it exists.
Well, I can certainly tell you what's occurred over the, about probably over the last 8 to 10 years. And that is our parking requirements, which people would hire me on a continual basis to do adjustments or variances to reduce that parking demand. City requires so many parking spaces per 1,000 square feet or per seats for a restaurant. What we have seen over a trend over the past probably 10 years has been our city parking requirements are less than what private development requires for their businesses anyway. So if we had a 4-to-1 parking ratio, 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of retail, as an example, we see clients actually demanding from their landlords 5 to 6 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. Well, and that's all fine and dandy. That's marketing, that's private enterprise, that's what we need to maintain a viable business in this location. Clearly, as we all know, some uses require more parking than other uses. But what we've seen in a trend, both policy-wise and in actual development, is a reduction in parking because why? We are trying to focus, and we just had a project within the last year in College Hill that kind of suited this philosophy to a great degree, and that is we are in the business of trying to reduce vehicle miles. We're trying to reduce the dependency on automobiles, and one of the ways, and this is a very low-key, soft approach to this, is to provide limited parking in order to try to encourage people to use transit and other modes of transportation to serve this. So if this is a mixed development, where we would have some residential component on an upper floor, we would expect, people to occupy those units, perhaps without parking, a designated parking space for them, because they bicycle to work, they walk to work, perhaps they live or work in that building. So again, it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to try to, again, not have seas and seas of open air parking that is underutilized from not only a transit situation and a policy situation, but also from stormwater flow and quality issues. So the more surface parking we have, the more need for stormwater drains. Now, granted, we're within blocks of the river. That's a little less of an issue here in this particular location, but again, it all comes into play.
And this goes along with Wichita Places for People plan, and it's all over the nation. It's happening where parking is no longer an emphasis, just like you said, trying to encourage people to take public transport. And parking also is very expensive for businesses to maintain, but it's cheap for us. I mean, we have cheap parking here in Wichita, very cheap. But I know, but it's a ride here in Wichita. But
Yeah, that's why
it's just an overall
she was good.
national trend where more people are riding the buses. We're seeing scooters, we're seeing bicycles for rent. And if you go out east, you see those seas of unused parking out there. And and I think it's all part of this reaction to climate change that people have known about for years. And we as a city have got to be ready for when we implement.
I guess part of the issue here is we are approving the rezoning, but we do not have a clue what's going to go there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to speak at it from one perspective, there may be something else completely different. And so it's saying, are we in agreement that this is okay? Are we going to accept the consequences with this no matter what is going to be done? And so that's
That's a good point.
I think from where I'm sitting, looking at the map that shows the zoning, the question I had going into it was whether or not CBD was an appropriate use for that land area, taking out the thought of what could it be, what might it be, and it seems like the majority of the adjacent properties are commercial or central business districts, so it seems it would be an appropriate fit for those lots in that spot, considering the adjacent land uses. It seems like an appropriate zoning.
agree 100% with that. But in the past, we have dealt with properties that have had buildings on them, and the buildings have been wanted to be redone such that the limited parking space that was already there would support what the building was going to do or be used for. And the point, my only point here is, after this I'm done, was that there's a very large vacant area. So how is this property going to be used with respect to the parking requirements? And that's my only concern. I'll leave it at that.
Do we have any idea? I heard commercial and residential. Is that
Well, the application just was submitted for purposes of redevelopment. They're not required to disclose the type of use they want. They go into a rezoning with the understanding that they will put a use that is permitted within the central business district zoning classification, as well as adhere to all the other requirements within the zoning district. So, yeah, we don't require them to disclose what the use is, because they may not, depending on who is coming in, they might not even give a hint that they're coming in, which could have repercussions and big effects potentially down the street or in the neighborhood. And if they don't get the rezoning, then nobody knew they were looking. So.
Can I say something? There's been studies that parking requirement, mandatory parking requirement actually inhibits development.
That's the whole point of
Yeah.
this. Yes, I don't disagree with that. Just about every single one that we've had that has come to us has been with respect to parking.
But we just don't know what's going on in this.
Right, and so that's a dilemma. And then, so as a group of individuals, a group of volunteers who provide a recommendation, do we feel okay with that? So it's just airing that perspective. Okay, it's out there, how do we go? That's the point. Yes,
Bill?
Well, I mean, looking at the uses that are permitted in the zoning districts, you just quickly run down them. And you're looking at uses that are permitted by right in the GC, general commercial zoning, which is what we have, as well as the central business district. I mean, there's some variance there, but you've got pretty much the same type of development that's permitted by right.
Yep.
So, yeah, again, I can understand we've got a partially developed site. We're not sure what it could be, but we've got a good idea what it can be based on its current zoning and what they're requesting. And then the obvious advantage, as mentioned in the South, down South Quarter, you've got more flexibility with parking in regards to rather than having a set requirement, you can scale your parking according to how much you've got land here, what type of development you've got. Plus, you've got the advantage, as Russ pointed out, you've got zero lot line, which means you can put that building right up against the right of way, which is, I think, better in regards to location of parking afterwards, perhaps. It's an unusual shaped piece of property too. It's tight. As was pointed out, we've got CBD across the Second Street, across the river. I know the river's a big barrier, the whole thing, but I think I feel reasonably assured that what we're going to see in CBD is what we could see with GC without having them come back later and address the constraints of setbacks and parking.
last question. Whatever is developed, access to the property will have to be presented and accepted?
Yes. And access to the property right now is off of the vacated street, which this property owns half of.
Yeah, I'm thinking from the perspective, would it be acceptable to have multiple exits and entry points off the Queen Boulevard? That would be,
Probably not.
that's
The
all
plane
I'm
has full access control, meaning like you would have to make the request. And given the nature of McLean, I know they have not requested to have an access point right now. I don't think we would permit an access point either.
if I may, just really quickly, so the city's a partner to this. So not only does the city own the fee simple titles of the land that we're talking about, we'll also have to plat this property, if nothing else than just to get a clear title to it, because this is,
There's a railroad right away.
let's just say this is an antiquated piece of Wichita, Kansas. And so,
It's actually platted as a reserve.
so we'll actually have to plat this to establish a legal boundary, and at that time, I'm certain that we will not have or seek access off of the claim for a number of reasons. But I could probably see 2 points of access off of Second Street.
Thank you.
Is that right of way, that connects to the bike lane or the bike path? It's supposed to go
It
through
used
the
to,
middle?
but no, the bike lane is further south. The bike lane is between Douglas and what would be First Street in Toledo. This is much further north.
Okay, but
I
it
think-
won't connect to that bike lane?
No, the right of ways we're talking about on this picture here,
Right.
these two lines that go up were former rail lines.
Right.
When, so many more rail lines came through downtown Wichita. And they just, those right of ways just happen to, are just still retained, as Russ pointed out, they're going to have to replat it. Because right now, with those right of ways there, you have to get rid of them before, like, they're not zoned, they're not, like, the city doesn't own the right of ways, So, yeah, they eventually had gone down into the lane, but they do not connect. Just because you have the library property here,
Mhm.
and this obviously is an old area, you have the street that comes down, and then you have the current two sides below that are currently being redeveloped more closely to that bikeway. But yeah, there's not a dedicated access to there. We're just talking about just kind of leftover pieces of old remnant railroad right of way that need to be taken care of.
The new bike path or the continued bike path is down here by, see this triangle? It's down in here.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's like full size.
The
Any other-
zoning map would give you a better
Yeah.
clue this kind of in here.
Yeah.
Of the bike path.
Yeah, you can see the triangle better. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience here to speak on this particular item? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion or motion.
Make a motion that we approve the recommendation as. Second.
Moved and seconded by James. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. All right. Issues of concern? Anything from DAB members?
A few things, but I'll talk to you about it afterwards on this camera.
Okay. Any neighborhood reports? Any neighborhood reports?
just to let you know, if you didn't see it on next door, gentleman near Sheridan was loading his pickup with tools. And when he went back in to get more tools, the thieves were just taking them out of his pickup as he was loading.
Oh my gosh.
So
Where Sheridan was this on?
near 15th and Sheridan.
Wow.
That's tough.
So you have to have two people, right? One to watch the.
One to watch the truck or.
Big dog in the back.
Yeah, big dog and that big. So much fun. Okay, any other neighborhood reports? Anything from any neighbors? Couple things, Open Streets ICT is this weekend, Sunday from 12 to 5 down in Douglas. So come out, no motorized vehicles, so no scooters. No park. We have to park off of Douglas, but ride your bike, walk, and it's a great event, so show up for that. And then on September 28th, we'll have our coffee, and Troy Hauptman is coming to speak from Parks and Rec. And so coffee at the YMCA, downtown YMCA, 9 to 10:30 on Saturday, September 28th. See you there.
Yeah, I can plug for something.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
gonna be a yoga festival.
Yogurt?
Yoga.
Yeah, that's not
They
yoga.
don't have yoga, but there's gonna be a yoga festival and the Watermarks, no, not Watermarks, this is a store, Water Place.
The books, Water Walk,
Yeah, Water Walk.
downtown.
Yes,
Water Walk.
Big yoga fest on the 21st, the Saturday before.
Saturday. Oh, God.
So there's gonna be vendors and all kinds of stuff there. They'll be having yoga classes.
All kinds of things going on this weekend, right? So.
Just skip the yoga and go straight to the yoga.
The yogurt, yeah, that's right.
Find a yogurt stand.
That's right. And Saturday evening, Sherwood Glen Neighborhood is having a fundraiser. If you guys remember, but they have preserved their park at the, if you recall, Catholic Charities came to talk to us about buying the law enforcement training center and donating that parkland. So they are raising money for equipment, playground equipment in that park to help be a partner with the city in terms of equipping that park. So they are having a party this weekend. I think it's 5:30 to 7 at Sherwood Glen Park. They're about 37th and Walmart. So
everybody's out of that building now, right, and on campus.
yeah, they're getting ready to do their renovation. They're doing a capital campaign for it. So, all right, if there is nothing else, I believe we are adjourned. Our next meeting is Monday, October 7th, 6:30, right here.
So the building at the north end of Sims Park, I've been noticing that it's getting demolished. What's
Yes.
happening there, just from a,
Yeah, their private developers have bought that property. You're talking about the 11th and Amadon, right?
The builder, Sun Hospital.
What's that?
you know,
Which
No.
one?
It was the old Booth, it was the Booth
Juvenile.
Memorial, and then it was a,
Juvenile.
juvenile detention center. And so all of that's been gone for, I don't know, a couple of years. Some developers bought that, and they are looking at some sort of development there. They haven't decided yet. At one point, they thought they were going to do duplexes, and then that hasn't quite worked out like they thought it would, so now they're kind of re-exploring what they're gonna do. But no matter what, they needed to take the building down. It was not in very good shape. Couldn't really be repurposed.
so is the property is the field that's just kind of to the north, the triangular field, is that all part of the property there?
This property, when the developers first came to us, the city owned two pieces at each end.
Okay,
So, yeah. So what they did was they traded property up at that big triangle that's mowed.
Yeah.
The developers they extended that piece of property to give to the city, and the city in turn gave them a little piece at the other end. So they have one big piece of property, and the city all their properties together. So that will be is a public park, and will perhaps get some amenities. They have a tax increment financing
okay,
request. So
I walk by it all the
Yeah,
time, and I
yeah,
just
no, like,
never
what's
knew
going
what
on
was
there?
going on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
all
Appreciate
right,
that.
yeah, thanks for
What's
asking.
this,
It is.
be multifamily?
Yes, because they could put apartments in there.
Probably not planned there, is it?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that they can put in multifamily without having any zoning change at all.
Riverside is
I do know that.
the one that.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you
I
all.
said Riverside Hospital, but I knew. I